Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to the English Globe, your favorite place on YouTube, where we help you practice real, natural English through interesting topics, helpful conversations, and motivating stories. My name is Adam, and I'm so happy to be here with you today for another episode of our English Learning Podcast. I hope you are doing well wherever you are in the world right now. Whether you're at home relaxing, walking outside with your headphones, or maybe studying quietly in your room.
Hi there, friends. I'm Julia, and I also want to thank you so much for being here with us today. We are always excited to spend this special time with you. Every week, we bring you new and meaningful episodes that help you improve your English step by step. And remember, this podcast is not just about learning English, it's also about learning life lessons, getting inspired, and becoming more confident in yourself. So, thank you for choosing to be part of the English Globe family. Your support and love mean everything to us.
Before we jump into today's exciting topic, we would like to kindly remind you to support this channel by doing a few simple things. Please don't forget to like this video right now, because it helps us reach more people who want to learn English like you. Also, make sure to subscribe to the English Globe and click the bell icon, so that you never miss a new episode when we upload. If you enjoy this podcast, if you learn something new, or if you feel motivated by what we share, please take a moment to leave a comment below and share this video with your friends, your classmates, or anyone who is also on a journey to learn English and grow in life.
Yes, we truly believe that learning is more fun and powerful when you do it together. So when you share this podcast, you are not only helping our channel grow, but you are also helping someone else improve their English too. Now let's talk about today's topic. We are going to talk about something very real, very deep, and very important. Something that every person in the world experiences, no matter where they are from, how old they are, or what language they speak. And that topic is failure.
Yes, you heard that right. The full title of this episode is How to Use Failure as a Tool for Growth. And while the word failure might sound a little scary or negative at first, today we want to look at it in a completely different way. You see, failure is something that happens to all of us. It doesn't matter if you are a student, a teacher, a worker, or even a famous person. Everyone fails at something at some point. But the important thing is what we do after we fail. Do we give up? Or do we learn from it and try again?
That's exactly what we want to explore in this episode. We want to help you understand that failure is not something to be afraid of. In fact, it can be one of the most powerful tools to help you grow, improve, and succeed in life. And the best part is, we are going to talk about this using simple English so you can understand everything clearly, even if you are still in the early stages of learning English.
This podcast is made especially for beginner students, so don't worry if you don't understand everything right away. We are here to help you every step of the way. In this episode, we are going to speak slowly and clearly. We will explain important words and phrases. We will also repeat some parts so that you can listen again and practice.
Let me give you a little preview of what we are going to talk about in this episode. First, we will explain what failure really means, and we'll give you some simple and clear examples from real life that you can easily understand. Then, we will talk about why people are often afraid to fail, and how that fear can stop them from trying new things. After that, we'll show you how failure can actually help you grow and become a better person. You'll also hear real stories of people who failed many times before they became successful. And we'll finish by giving you practical tips you can use in your own life when things don't go the way you planned.
And of course, we'll have a special part where you can practice speaking with us. We'll ask you questions, teach you useful phrases, and help you build your vocabulary so that you can feel more confident when using English in real-life situations. So we invite you to stay with us for the whole episode. This will be a long and relaxing podcast where you can learn English naturally while hearing a message that can truly help you in your life.
But before we begin all of that, we want to ask you a very simple but powerful question. This question is just to get you thinking and to help you connect with today's topic on a personal level. The question is, have you ever failed at something in your life? Maybe you studied hard for an exam but didn't pass. Maybe you tried to speak English in front of others and felt embarrassed. Maybe you had a big dream but it didn't happen the way you wanted.
If you have ever felt disappointed because something didn't go the way you hoped, then you have experienced failure. And that's completely okay. We have all been there. We have all failed at something. Even Julia and I have had moments where we tried something and it didn't work out, and we'll share some of our stories with you during this episode. But the most important thing we want you to know today is this. Failure is not the end. It's only the beginning. It's a new chance, a new lesson, a new opportunity to grow and do better next time.
So please stay with us until the end of this episode. Find a quiet place, get comfortable, maybe bring a notebook to take some notes, and enjoy this time of learning. You are not alone in your English learning journey. We are right here with you, and we believe in you. Let's get started together.
All right, let's begin the first part of our conversation, where we answer a very important question. What is failure? And how can we look at it in a new and helpful way? All right, everyone. Now that we've introduced today's topic and asked you to think about a time when you might have experienced failure, it's time for us to take a closer look and really understand what failure actually means. This is an important step because when you clearly understand a word, not just the dictionary meaning, but what it means in real life, you can begin to see it differently. And when we see failure in a new way, we can start to feel less afraid of it and learn how to use it to help us grow, both in our English journey and in our life in general.
That's right, Adam. So let's begin with a very simple and clear definition of the word failure. In basic English, we can say that failure means something did not work the way you wanted it to work. It means you tried to do something, but you did not get the result you were hoping for. Maybe you made a mistake. Maybe you were not ready. Or maybe the situation was just too difficult at that time. Whatever the reason, the goal you had was not reached. That is what we call failure.
For example, if you study for a test in your English class, but then you take the test and get a low score, that is an example of failure. You tried, you hoped to do well, but in the end, you didn't pass. Or maybe you were trying to get a job, you wrote your resume, you went to the interview, you waited for the call, but in the end, the company chose someone else. That can feel like failure too. It's that feeling when you want something, you work toward it, but it doesn't happen, and that can be hard.
Yes, and failure doesn't only happen in big things like tests or jobs. It can also happen in small things we do every day. For example, maybe you try to cook a new recipe for your family, but the food doesn't taste good. Or maybe you try to speak English with someone at a store or in your class, but the words don't come out the way you wanted, and you feel nervous or embarrassed. These are also small examples of failure, but they are part of learning and growing.
And here's something important to remember. Failure does not mean that you are a bad person or that you are not good enough. It simply means that in that moment, something did not go as planned. It's not the end of the world. In fact, it's just one part of your journey. And if we look at it the right way, we can actually learn more from failure than we can from success, because failure shows us what we can do better next time.
That's so true, Adam. And I think it's helpful if we share some of our own personal stories with our listeners. These stories are simple, but we hope they help you see that even teachers and native speakers fail too. And that's okay. So I'll go first. One time when I was in high school, I was part of a school play. I was so excited because I had a small speaking part and I wanted to do a great job. I practiced every day, I memorized my lines, and I felt ready. But when it was time to go on stage and speak in front of the whole school, I got so nervous that I completely forgot my lines. I stood there frozen, and I felt so embarrassed. After the play, I cried and thought I had completely failed. But later, I realized that it was just one moment, and it didn't mean I was bad at speaking. It just meant I needed more practice and experience.
Wow, Julia, thank you for sharing that. I think many people have experienced something like that. being nervous, and forgetting what to say. And yes, it feels like failure in the moment, but it can become a powerful lesson for the future. I also have a story to share. When I was younger, I really wanted to study abroad. I applied to a university in another country, and I was so excited. I worked very hard on my application. I asked for recommendations, wrote my essay, and I waited for months. But when the letter came, it said I was not accepted. I felt so disappointed. I thought maybe I wasn't smart enough or good enough. But later, I realized that it wasn't the end. I applied again the next year, and this time, I got accepted. Looking back, I see that first failure was actually something that made me stronger and more focused.
That's such a great example, Adam. And it shows our listeners that failure can actually lead to success if we don't give up. It's also a reminder that failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the journey to success. Many times we think that if we fail, it means we are finished. But in reality, many people who are successful today failed many times before they reached their goals.
Yes, and sometimes we need to fail so that we can discover something new about ourselves. Failure can teach us patience. It can help us learn how to solve problems. It can show us what we care about most. And every time we try again after failing, we become a little braver and a little wiser.
Exactly. And to all our beginner English learners listening to this podcast, we want to say this. If you have ever failed at learning English, maybe you didn't pass a test, maybe you made mistakes while speaking, or maybe you forgot a word, you are not alone. That is completely normal, and it happens to every single person who learns a new language. The important thing is to keep going. Don't give up. Don't stop trying. Because every small failure is helping you grow.
So now that we've talked about what failure really means and shared some real stories from our own lives, we hope you can start to see failure in a new light. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's something to learn from. And in the next part of our podcast, we're going to talk about why so many people are afraid of failure and how that fear can sometimes stop us from moving forward.
But before we go to the next section, take a moment to think. Can you remember a time in your life when you failed at something? How did it make you feel? And what did you learn from that experience? If you want, you can write about it in the comments below. We would love to read your story and connect with you.
Yes, and once again, if you are enjoying this podcast and finding it helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the English Globe, and share it with your friends. We're here to help you improve your English and grow in your life.
All right, let's take a short break. And when we come back, we'll explore the next big question. Why are we so afraid of failure? Stay with us. Now that we understand what failure really is, and we've shared some real stories about moments in our lives when we failed, let's talk about something even deeper. Something that many people feel but don't always talk about openly. Today, we want to ask this important question. Why do people feel so afraid of failure? Why does the idea of failing make our hearts beat faster or stop us from even trying new things? You see, one of the biggest reasons people stop themselves from chasing their dreams, learning a new skill like English, or doing something different in life is not because they don't have the ability, and it's not because they are lazy or don't care. Most of the time, it's simply because they are afraid of failing. And that fear becomes a big wall, a barrier that stands in the way of progress. It's like a voice inside your mind that whispers things like, "What if you're not good enough?" Or, "What if you try and make a mistake in front of everyone?" And those small thoughts, those tiny worries, can grow into something much bigger and much stronger if we don't understand where they come from and how to deal with them.
Yes, Julia, you're absolutely right. That fear of failure, what we sometimes call the fear of falling short, is very real, and it affects almost everyone at some point in their life. But here's something really important. People don't usually fear the failure itself. They fear what other people will think if they fail. They are afraid of being judged, of looking weak, of hearing someone say, "See? I knew you couldn't do it." And that fear of judgment can be very powerful. For example, imagine a student who wants to speak English in class, but he doesn't raise his hand because he's thinking, what if I say the wrong word and the other students laugh at me? Or imagine a person who wants to start a small business, but she keeps delaying it because she's worried that if it doesn't succeed, her family or friends will say she made a mistake. These situations are not about the actual failure. They are about fear of embarrassment, fear of shame, fear of being seen as less than perfect. And that's why fear of failure is not just a problem in the classroom or at work. It's a feeling that lives deep inside us, in the way we think and feel about ourselves.
That's so true, Adam. And I think we can make this even clearer for our listeners by using some simple phrases that people often say to themselves when they feel afraid of failing. These are short but powerful sentences that many of us have probably heard in our own minds, maybe even today. For example, one very common phrase is, "I'm afraid to fail." It sounds simple, but it's full of emotion. It means, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to look foolish. I don't want to feel pain or disappointment. Another one is, what if I make a mistake? This little question can stop someone from taking action, from speaking up, from trying something new. It's a question full of worry, full of doubt. And if we let it grow, it can control our decisions. Another phrase is, what will people think of me if I fail? That question shows just how much people care about other people's opinions, sometimes more than their own dreams. And all of these phrases are important because they help us understand that the fear of failure is not about being lazy. It's about being scared of what might happen if things go wrong.
Exactly. And I want to add one more idea here, which I think many people can relate to. Sometimes, people are not only afraid of what others will think, they are also afraid of feeling disappointed in themselves. This is what we call self-disappointment, and it's a powerful emotion. Let me explain with an example. Imagine someone has a big goal to speak English fluently. They practice every day, they listen to podcasts, they take lessons, and they feel hopeful. But one day, they try to speak with a native speaker, and they can't find the right words. They freeze, they get nervous, and then afterward, instead of feeling proud that they even tried, they feel sad, frustrated, and angry with themselves. They say, why am I still not good enough? I worked so hard. And that moment of disappointment can feel worse than the failure itself. It can make a person think about giving up, not because they don't love learning English, but because they don't want to feel that deep sadness again. So we have to recognize that fear of failure includes both fear of outside judgment and fear of internal disappointment.
Yes, Adam, and this is why it's so important for us to talk about failure in a healthy way, especially with English learners who are still in the beginning stages. We need to say clearly, it's okay to fail. It's okay to try and not succeed. It's okay to make mistakes because mistakes are part of learning. If we don't normalize failure, if we don't make it okay to fall down, then we will always be afraid of standing up. And that fear will limit us. It will keep us in a small, safe space where we never grow. But if we can change our mindset, if we can say to ourselves, it's okay to be wrong, or it's okay to not be perfect, then we give ourselves the freedom to grow, to try, and to become stronger, step by step.
And one way to begin changing that mindset is by remembering this. Everyone fails, even the best people in the world. Athletes, actors, teachers, parents, business owners, language learners, every single one of them has failed many times, and they probably felt afraid too. But they kept going. They didn't let fear control their future. And that's what we want for you too. We want you to remember that it's completely normal to feel afraid of failing, but it's also possible to move forward, even when you're afraid. It starts by understanding your fear, giving it a name, and then deciding that you're not going to let that fear decide your future.
So now that we've talked about the reasons why people fear failure, in the next part of the podcast, we're going to show you how you can use failure in a positive way. Yes, that's right. We're going to explain how failure can actually become a tool, a stepping stone. a way to help you grow and move closer to success. We're going to give you some practical tips and ideas that you can use in your English learning and in your life.
So far, we've talked about what failure is, why people are so afraid of it, and how those fears can hold us back in life, especially when we are learning something new like the English language. Now, it's time to turn the page and focus on the positive side of failure. That's right. In this part of the podcast, we are going to answer an important question that might change the way you think forever. And the question is this: how can failure actually help you grow? Because even though it might sound surprising at first, failure is not only something we need to accept, it is something that can teach us, shape us, and help us become better and stronger human beings in ways that success never could.
Yes, exactly, Adam. Many people think that failure is something bad, something that we should avoid, something that we should be ashamed of. But in reality, failure is one of the greatest teachers in life. Every time we fail, we are being given a lesson. And that lesson is often more powerful than anything we could read in a book or learn in a classroom. Think about it like this. When you make a mistake, your brain pays more attention. You ask yourself questions like, what went wrong? Or, how can I do better next time? And that process, that thinking, that reflection, that is where real learning begins. Success often makes us feel good, but failure makes us grow, and if we are open to learning from it, failure can become a guide, like a teacher that walks beside us and shows us the right direction.
That's a beautiful way to put it, Julia. Let me give you a simple example from real life. Imagine someone who is learning to speak English, and they try to say something like, "She go to the store yesterday." Now, that's a small grammar mistake. It should be, "She went to the store yesterday." But here's the amazing part. When the learner hears the correction and understands the mistake, they are learning something very deep about how the past tense works in English. That one little error becomes a powerful lesson, and they are now less likely to make the same mistake again. So instead of feeling bad or embarrassed, the learner can say, "Thank you, mistake. You helped me understand something important." That's what we mean when we say that failure helps us grow. It gives us feedback. It gives us clarity. It shows us what we need to improve.
Yes, and we can also think about failure as a kind of mirror. When something doesn't go the way we planned, we have the chance to look at ourselves, to look at our actions, and to ask, what can I learn from this experience? And that word, experience, is so important. Because everything we go through in life, whether it's good or bad, becomes part of our personal story. And failure, believe it or not, is one of the most powerful parts of that story. It shows us not only what we did wrong, but also what we are capable of. It teaches us where we are strong and where we need to work harder. It teaches us what not to do the next time. For example, if you try to memorize 100 English words in one day and fail to remember them, you learn that maybe your method is not working. Maybe you need to study fewer words or study in a new way or use the words in sentences. That mistake becomes a message. Try again, but try differently.
Absolutely. Failure also helps us become mentally and emotionally stronger. When we go through something difficult and come out the other side, we build something called resilience. That means we become tougher inside. We learn how to handle stress, disappointment, and pressure. And this strength, this inner power, is something that stays with us forever. The more we fail and keep going, the more confident we become, not because we never fall, but because we know we can stand up again. That's why many successful people say, "I learned more from my failures than from my victories." They understand that failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the path to success.
I love that, Adam. And let's take a moment to talk about some useful vocabulary here that our listeners can use in their own English practice. One important word is lesson. A lesson is something you learn, sometimes from a teacher, but often from your own life. Another important word is experience. Experience is what you get by doing things, even when those things don't work out perfectly. Then we have mistake. A mistake is when you do something the wrong way, but it helps you understand how to do it right in the future. And of course, we can't forget the word improve. To improve means to get better over time. And guess what? Every mistake, every failure, every difficult experience is a chance to improve.
Exactly, Julia. Let's repeat those words slowly for our beginner students, and maybe we can say them in a simple sentence too. First, lesson. I learned an important lesson from my mistake. Next, experience. I had a bad experience, but I learned something useful. Then, mistake. It's okay to make a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. And finally, improve. I want to improve my English every day. These words are simple but powerful, and they can help you talk about your journey, your progress, and even your failures in a positive way.
That's right. And one last thing I want to say is this. Failure doesn't just help you grow, it helps you connect with other people. When you share your mistakes, your challenges, your failures, people don't judge you. They see you, they understand you, they feel closer to you. Why? Because everyone has failed at something. When you talk about your failures openly and honestly, you are telling the world, hey, I'm human, I'm learning, I'm growing. And that makes your story more real, more inspiring, and more powerful.
Beautifully said, Julia. So now, dear listeners, we hope you see failure in a new way, not as a dark cloud, but as a light that shows the way forward. Failure teaches you, it shapes you, it helps you grow stronger, smarter, and more confident. And the best part? Every failure brings you one step closer to success.
And now, in the next part of our podcast, we are going to share some practical, real-life tips on how you can use failure in your daily life to keep moving forward, especially when you're learning English. These tips will help you stay positive, stay motivated, and stay on track even when things get tough.
Let's begin with a story about a man who is very famous today, but he didn't always have success. His name is Thomas Edison, and he was an inventor, which means he created many things that helped improve people's lives. One of his most famous inventions is the electric light bulb, which is something we all use in our homes, schools, and businesses every single day. However, what many people don't know about Thomas Edison is that he didn't make the light bulb on his first try, or even on his 10th try. In fact, he failed over 1,000 times before he finally made the light bulb work. Imagine how many times he had to try again before he could succeed. Imagine the feelings of frustration, disappointment, and maybe even doubt he felt when each of his experiments didn't work. Yet, even after failing so many times, he never gave up. He kept trying because he believed in his dream, and he knew that each failure taught him something new. His story is a powerful reminder that failure is not the end, it is just a part of the journey to success. Edison himself said something very famous. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. He didn't see his mistakes as failures. Instead, he saw them as lessons, steps along the way, each one bringing him closer to the solution. His story teaches us that failure is not something to be afraid of. It is a part of the process of learning and growing. So, the next time you fail, remember Thomas Edison. Think of all the ways he could have given up, but he didn't. And because he didn't, the world now has the light bulb, which changed everything.
Another famous person whose story is often shared to inspire people who are struggling is J.K. Rowling, the author of the famous Harry Potter book series. You may already know her name because her books are read by millions of people around the world, and they have been turned into movies that everyone loves. But did you know that J.K. Rowling faced many challenges and failures before she became successful? In fact, before Harry Potter was published, she was living in a very difficult situation. She was a single mother, struggling to find work and living in poverty. She had many difficult times in her life. At one point, she even thought that her dream of becoming a writer would never come true. She was rejected by 12 different publishers before one finally agreed to publish her book. Imagine that, being told no 12 times. Many people would have given up after just a few rejections, but not J.K. Rowling. She believed in her story and she believed that her dream was worth fighting for. She kept writing even when things seemed impossible. And after all those rejections, one publisher finally said yes. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was published, and the rest is history. It became a huge success. Today, J.K. Rowling is one of the richest and most famous authors in the world. But her story shows us that failure is not a sign to quit. It is a sign to keep going, to keep trying, and to never give up on your dreams, no matter how many times you are told no. Her message to all of us is simple. The difference between success and failure is not giving up.
These are just two of many inspiring stories of people who didn't give up after failing. But the truth is, many successful people have faced failures at some point in their lives. Take, for example, Michael Jordan, the famous basketball player. Michael Jordan is often considered the greatest basketball player of all time. But did you know that he was cut from his high school basketball team? Yes, he wasn't good enough to play on his school's team at first. Can you imagine that? A future legend being told he wasn't good enough? That must have hurt, but it didn't stop him. Michael Jordan kept practicing. He worked harder than ever before, and he didn't let that failure define him. In fact, he used that moment to push himself to become even better. Now, we know him as one of the best athletes in history. Michael Jordan once said, "I have missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I have lost almost 300 games. 26 times I have been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I have failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." He understood that failure was not a reason to give up. Instead, failure was a lesson. Each failure gave him the chance to learn and improve. So, when you face your own failures, remember that even the greatest people in the world faced challenges, but they didn't let those challenges stop them. They used their failures to grow and become even stronger.
And there are so many other examples of people who turned failure into success. For example, Walt Disney, the creator of Disneyland, and Mickey Mouse, was fired from a newspaper job because they said he lacked imagination. He was told that he would never be successful in the world of entertainment. Can you believe that? But instead of accepting that as the end of his dream, he used it as motivation to prove everyone wrong. He went on to create one of the biggest entertainment companies in the world. Oprah Winfrey, the famous talk show host, was once told she was not fit for television. She was fired from her first job as a TV reporter. And now Oprah is one of the most successful and influential women in the world. These stories show us that failure is not something to fear. It is something we can learn from. It is something that can push us to work harder, to become better, and to prove that we are capable of achieving great things.
So, what can we learn from all these stories? We can learn that failure is not the end of the road. It is only one step on the way to success. Failure is a chance to learn, to improve, and to grow stronger. These famous people didn't give up after their failures. Instead, they used their failures to help them become better at what they do. And if they can do it, so can you. So, remember, the next time you fail, don't be afraid. Use it as a tool for growth. Learn from it, improve, and keep moving forward.
We hope these stories inspire you to keep trying, no matter what obstacles you face. And remember, every failure is just another chance to get closer to your dreams. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep believing in yourself.
Now that we have talked about some inspiring success stories and the fact that failure is not the end, It is time for us to share practical tips on how you can learn from your own failures. Many of us face challenges, and sometimes we fail, but it is what we do after that failure that really matters. The most important thing to remember is that failure is not something that should stop us. Instead, it is an opportunity to grow, to become better, and to learn something new. Let's start by talking about the first step. When you fail at something, it's important to reflect on what happened. Reflecting means thinking about the situation carefully. It means asking yourself, what went wrong? Or, why did I fail? It might feel uncomfortable to think about why you failed, but it is an important part of learning. When you take time to reflect, you can understand your mistakes better. You can see where you went wrong and what you can do differently next time. For example, if you failed a test, maybe you didn't study enough, or maybe you didn't understand the material well. Reflecting on these things helps you figure out how you can improve next time.
Yes, reflection is very important. It helps you take a step back and look at the bigger picture. It also helps you stop blaming yourself. Instead of thinking, I failed, I'm a failure, you should think, I made a mistake, and mistakes are part of learning. So, take some time to think. Ask yourself questions like, what did I learn from this failure? Or, what could I have done differently? If you are failing at a certain task, it doesn't mean you are bad at it. It just means that there is something you still need to learn. And that's okay. Everyone needs to learn, and everyone makes mistakes. No one gets everything right on the first try. So, reflecting is the first step to improving. When you reflect on what happened, you give yourself a chance to learn from your failure, and that helps you become stronger.
After reflecting, the next step is to ask yourself what you learned. This is where you start turning your failure into something positive. It's not enough just to think about the failure. You need to find out what you can learn from it. For example, let's say you tried to learn a new skill, like playing a musical instrument, but you didn't succeed right away. Instead of just giving up, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Maybe you learned that you need to practice more, or that you need to break the task into smaller steps. Maybe you learned that you need to be more patient with yourself. Whatever it is, learning from your failure helps you grow. Learning is the key to progress. Even if you didn't succeed this time, you are still gaining experience. And with experience comes improvement.
Exactly, Adam. And after reflecting and understanding what you learned, it's time to try again. Now this part is very important because trying again doesn't mean doing the same thing the same way. Trying again means that you need to come up with a new plan. If what you tried before didn't work, it's time to think about why it didn't work and change your approach. You need to be flexible. For example, if your first plan was to study for 1 hour every day, but you didn't have enough time or you didn't focus well, you might need to adjust your plan. Maybe now you decide to study in shorter sessions or find a quieter place to study. Trying again means making changes and not giving up. It means being willing to try something new, learn from your past mistakes, and keep moving forward. And remember, even if you fail again, that's okay. It's just another chance to reflect and learn something new. So don't be afraid to try again, even if it feels hard. Keep moving forward.
That's right, Julia. When you try again, you also need to remember that patience is key. Success doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes we can get frustrated or upset because we want to see results right away. But real growth takes time, and learning from your mistakes is a slow process. That's why having a plan is important. A plan gives you direction, and it helps you stay focused. When you fail, and then try again, your plan might need to change, but that's okay. Plans are not perfect, and they can always be adjusted. The important thing is that you keep going. You need to believe in yourself and trust the process. Failure is not the end. It is just a part of the journey. It is like a stepping stone. Each time you fail and then try again, you are one step closer to success.
And remember, Adam, It is also very important not to give up. This is the hardest part for many people. It can be so easy to quit when things are not going well. We all know that feeling of wanting to give up, but not giving up is what separates successful people from those who never reach their goals. When you don't give up, you keep learning and growing, even if it's slow. So, don't give up just because you failed once or twice. Think of all the famous people we talked about earlier. They failed many times, but they didn't stop trying. They didn't let failure define them. Instead, they used their failures as lessons to grow. Failure is not a reason to stop. It's a reason to keep going, to keep trying, and to keep improving. Keep moving forward with your plan, stay patient, and trust that you will improve.
As you can see, the process of learning from failure is not easy. It takes effort, time, and patience. But the results are worth it. By reflecting on what happened, asking yourself what you can learn, making a new plan, and trying again, you are turning failure into something useful. You are using failure as a tool for growth. And remember, every time you fail, you get closer to success because you learn more about yourself and what works for you. You grow stronger, smarter, and more capable. So, when you fail next time, don't be discouraged. Take a deep breath, reflect on it, learn from it, and keep going. Don't give up, because success is waiting for you. All right, Julia. Now that we've explored how failure can be a tool for growth and how we can learn from our mistakes, it's time to look at some very common English phrases that relate to failure and growth. These phrases are useful to know because they can help you talk about your experiences with failure and learning in a way that is common in English-speaking cultures. Plus, learning these phrases will help you sound more natural when speaking English. Let's begin with one of the most popular phrases, try again. This phrase is often said to encourage someone who has failed to keep going and keep trying. When you hear this phrase, it means that even though you failed once or twice, you should keep going. The idea is that failure is not permanent, and if you keep trying, eventually you will succeed. This phrase is often used in situations where someone is frustrated or feeling discouraged. For example, if you're learning a new skill and you're not getting it right, someone might say, "Don't worry, just try again." This phrase reminds you not to give up, even if things are difficult at first. It teaches you that success requires effort, and that trying again after a failure is a positive step toward achieving your goals.
Yes, try again is a great phrase because it teaches us the power of persistence. It's a reminder that success often comes after many attempts. The more you try, the better you become, and the more likely you are to succeed. This phrase is a great way to encourage yourself or others when things don't go well. It tells you that failure is not a sign to quit, but rather a sign to keep moving forward. It's also a phrase you'll hear in movies, books, or even from motivational speakers, all because it carries such an important message. Just think about Thomas Edison, the man who invented the light bulb. He tried over 1,000 times before he succeeded. He didn't give up, and that's why he succeeded in the end. The phrase try again is a wonderful way to remind ourselves that perseverance is key in achieving our goals, no matter how difficult things might seem at the moment. Keep trying, keep practicing, and keep pushing forward.
Now let's talk about another very common phrase. Failure is the first step to success. This phrase might sound strange at first because we often think of failure as something negative. But in reality, failure is an important part of success. If you fail, you have learned something new. If you fail, you have gained experience. Failure teaches you what does not work, and that is essential to finding what will work. In fact, most successful people will tell you that their failures were actually the moments when they learned the most. If you never failed, you would never know what it's like to struggle, and you would never have the chance to improve. The phrase, failure is the first step to success, means that every failure brings you closer to achieving your dreams. It's a phrase that helps you see failure as a positive part of the process, rather than something to avoid or fear. For example, if you're practicing English and you make mistakes, remember that every mistake is teaching you something. Every mistake is one step closer to fluency. So don't be afraid to fail. Embrace it because it's helping you grow and move toward success.
Absolutely, Adam. The phrase failure is the first step to success reminds us that it's okay to make mistakes. In fact, we should expect to make mistakes along the way because they are an important part of the learning process. If we didn't fail, we wouldn't know how to improve. Think about when you were a child learning to walk. You probably fell down many times before you were able to walk without falling. But each time you fell, you learned how to stand up again and how to take better steps. Failure is the same way. It's like a learning experience that helps you grow stronger. This phrase also helps you change the way you see failure. Instead of seeing it as something bad or embarrassing, you should see it as a necessary step that helps you get better. So every time you fail, remember, it's just the first step towards success.
Next, let's look at another phrase that is very useful when talking about failure and growth. Learn from your mistakes. This phrase is very simple, but it carries a very important message. It's not enough to fail. The real value comes when we take the time to reflect on our failures and learn from them. The idea is that failure isn't just something to move past quickly. It's an opportunity to gain insight into what went wrong and to make changes for the future. So, when you fail at something, ask yourself, what can I learn from this mistake? For example, if you are trying to improve your English and you make a mistake while speaking, instead of just feeling bad about it, think about what went wrong. Did you forget a word? Did you make a grammar mistake? Once you know what happened, you can work to fix it and do better next time. Learning from your mistakes helps you grow. It helps you understand where you need to improve, and it shows you how to make smarter choices in the future. So instead of being upset when you make a mistake, focus on the lesson you can take from it. That's the key to growth and improvement.
Exactly. Learn from your mistakes is not just about knowing what went wrong, but also about making a plan to do better next time. It's about using the knowledge you gained from your failure to make better decisions in the future. Let's say you failed a test because you didn't study enough. Learning from that mistake means that next time, you will plan to study more. You will learn to manage your time better and maybe even ask for help if you don't understand something. This phrase helps you take control of your learning and your life. It encourages you to see mistakes as opportunities for growth rather than something negative. And remember, the more you practice this mindset, the more you will improve in everything you do.
So, let's quickly review these 3 important phrases. Try again. Failure is the first step to success. And learn from your mistakes. These are great phrases to help you keep a positive attitude about failure and to remind you that growth happens when you don't give up. Failure doesn't have to be the end of the road. Instead, it can be the beginning of something new. Every time you try again, and learn from your mistakes, you are getting closer to success. Use these phrases in your everyday life and let them guide you on your journey to personal growth.
And don't forget to practice these phrases out loud. Pronunciation is very important, and saying these phrases will help you become more confident in using them. So, take some time today to practice saying try again. Failure is the first step to success, and learn from your mistakes. As you say them, think about how they apply to your own life and your own journey. You are learning and growing every day, and these phrases are here to help you along the way.
All right, everyone. Now that we've gone over some really important points about failure and growth, it's time to get interactive. We want you to be part of the conversation. So, let's take a moment to think about your own experiences. I want to ask you all a very important question. What is one failure that you have learned from? Maybe you failed at something big, or maybe it was something small, but think about a time when you didn't succeed at first. Don't just think about the failure itself, but really think about what you learned from that experience. For example, did you learn that you needed more practice? Did you learn that you need a better plan next time? Or maybe you learned how important it is to stay patient with yourself and keep trying, even when things are difficult.
That's a great question, Adam. Everyone has faced failure at some point, but what really matters is what you take away from it. I'll share a personal example to give you an idea. When I first started learning a new language, I made so many mistakes, and at times I felt really frustrated. I remember one time, I had a conversation with someone in that language, and I couldn't remember the right words, and I ended up saying something completely wrong. I was embarrassed, but I didn't let that stop me. Instead, I asked myself, what can I learn from this mistake? I realized that I needed to practice more, and I needed to be more patient with myself. So, I learned to spend more time practicing and to not be afraid of making mistakes. After that, I improved and became more confident. And that's exactly what I want you to think about today.
Yes, Julia, that's a great example. And now, I want you to think about your own personal experience with failure. Maybe you failed at something recently, or maybe it was a long time ago. What happened? What did you learn from it? Think about it for a moment. And while you're reflecting, remember that failure is not something to fear. It's something that helps you grow. When you fail and reflect on what went wrong, you get a chance to improve. So don't be afraid to share your story with yourself. Think about your own mistakes and how they helped you grow. Once you have your story, we want you to remember these key phrases that we've discussed in this episode, like try again. Failure is the first step to success, and learn from your mistakes. These are phrases that you can use in your daily life to remind yourself that failure is not the end. It's just part of the process of growth.
That's right, Adam. And now I want to encourage you to say these phrases out loud. Practice your pronunciation and say them with us. We're going to say each phrase slowly, and we want you to repeat after us. Ready? Let's go. Try again. Good job. Let's say it one more time. Try again. Great. Now let's move on to the next phrase. Failure is the first step to success. That's fantastic. Let's say it together again. Failure is the first step to success. Now, for the last phrase, learn from your mistakes. Excellent. I hope you can feel the power in these phrases because they are so important for your personal growth. Every time you fail, remember that it's just part of the journey and you can learn something valuable from it.
Yes, and as you continue to practice these phrases, I want you to remember something very important. Failure is not something you have to go through alone. Everyone faces challenges and failures in life, and it's part of being human. But it's also what makes us stronger, smarter, and better in the long run. So, as you move forward in your own life, don't be afraid of failure. Instead, use it as an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to become the best version of yourself. Keep repeating these key phrases to remind yourself that failure is not the end, it's just part of the process.
Exactly. And now, I want to leave you with a challenge. For the next week, every time you face a challenge or a failure, I want you to remind yourself of these phrases and reflect on what you can learn. Take time to think about what went wrong, how you can improve, and what you will do differently next time. Don't just let failure discourage you. Instead, use it as a stepping stone to success. The more you practice this mindset, the more you will see how powerful failure can be as a tool for growth. And remember, you're not alone. Every successful person has failed many times before, but they use their failures to grow. You can do the same.
That's a great challenge, Julia, and we would love to hear from you about your experiences. Please leave a comment on this video or message us and tell us, what is one failure that you have learned from? How did you grow from it? We would love to hear your stories and share them with our community. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with your friends who may also need a little encouragement about failure.
Yes, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share this video with anyone who might find it helpful. Thank you so much for being part of today's episode. We hope you're feeling inspired to keep going, even when you fail. Remember, failure is not the end. It's the first step to success. Keep learning, keep growing, and we will see you in the next episode.
All right, everyone. We've discussed a lot today about failure and how it can be used to help you grow. And now, we are going to focus on reviewing the vocabulary we've introduced in this episode. This section is very important because learning new vocabulary is a key part of improving your English, and understanding how these words and phrases connect to the topic of failure will help you remember them better and make them more useful in your everyday conversations. So, I want you to pay attention closely as we go over each word, and please try to say them out loud as we go through them. Repeating these words will help you not only pronounce them correctly, but also get used to using them in your own speech.
The first word I want to go over is failure. Now, when we talk about failure, we are talking about moments when things don't go as we planned or expected. It's the time when we try something, whether it's a project, a test, or an idea, and it doesn't work out. For example, imagine that you studied very hard for an exam, but you didn't pass. In that case, you could say, "I failed the exam." However, failure is not the end of the story. It's just part of the process of learning and improving. So the next time you face failure, try to see it as a chance to grow and reflect on what you can do better next time. Let's say the word together, failure.
Great. Now, let's talk about a phrase that's very important in our discussion. Try again. This phrase is a very simple but powerful way to remind yourself not to give up. When you fail, it can be easy to feel discouraged, but the message of try again tells us that failure is not the end. It's simply a part of the journey. If you want to succeed at something, you need to keep trying. For example, if you didn't get a good grade on your first test, don't give up. Try again. Practice more, study differently, and give it another shot. Trying again after a failure is how you learn and improve. Let's practice saying the phrase together. Try again.
Moving on, another phrase we've used today is, failure is the first step to success. This phrase is incredibly important because it reminds us that failure is not the opposite of success. It's actually the first step towards it. Think about this. When you fail, you learn what doesn't work, and this knowledge is what guides you towards success. So instead of being afraid of failing, you should see it as an opportunity to learn and get closer to your goal. If you try something and it doesn't work out, don't feel bad about it. Instead, remember that failure is the first step. Let's practice saying this phrase together. Failure is the first step to success.
Next, we have the phrase, learn from your mistakes. This is a phrase that is closely connected to the idea that failure is an opportunity to grow. When you make a mistake, whether it's something small like spelling a word incorrectly or something bigger like not passing an important exam, it's important to reflect on the mistake and ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Every mistake teaches you something, and every mistake is a chance to improve. So, if you want to move forward and get better, you have to learn from each mistake and apply the lessons you've learned in the future. Let's practice saying this phrase together. Learn from your mistakes.
Finally, let's talk about the word growth. When we say growth, we're talking about the process of becoming better, stronger, or more advanced over time. Growth doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't always feel easy. Sometimes growth comes from the most difficult experiences, like facing failure, reflecting on it, and then taking action to improve. Whether you're growing in your personal life, in your studies, or in your career, growth is a constant process of learning, making mistakes, and improving. So, whenever you feel discouraged or think you're not improving fast enough, remember that growth is happening, even if it feels slow. Let's practice saying this word, growth.
Fantastic. Now, that's the end of our vocabulary review. I encourage you to keep practicing these words and phrases in your daily life. The more you use them, the more natural they will feel, and the better you'll get at expressing yourself in English. Keep reflecting on your mistakes, keep learning from them, And don't forget to keep trying, because that's how you grow. All right, now that we've gone through our vocabulary review, let's move on to some final thoughts.
As we come to the end of today's podcast, I want to share a few final thoughts with all of you. Throughout this episode, we've talked a lot about how failure can be used as a tool for growth. And I want to leave you with a reminder. Failure is not something you should fear. In fact, failure is something that can help you grow and become stronger. Think about it this way. Every time you fail, you get the opportunity to learn. You get the chance to ask yourself, what can I do differently next time? When you reflect on your failure and apply those lessons, you're getting one step closer to success. So if you fail at something, don't think of it as a bad thing. Instead, see it as a positive opportunity for growth. Failure is a part of life, and it's through failing that we learn how to succeed.
Exactly, Julia. And remember, failure is not the end of the road. It's just a small obstacle that you can overcome. Every successful person has faced failure at some point in their life, but what makes them successful is that they didn't let their failures define them. Instead, they kept moving forward, kept learning, and kept growing. And you can do the same. So, if you ever feel discouraged or afraid to try again, remember, failure does not mean you're finished. It simply means you are in the process of learning, and learning leads to growth. You are capable of great things, and failure is just one step along the way to achieving them.
Absolutely. And I want to leave you with a quote that I think really sums up the message of today's episode. The quote is, "Every mistake is a step forward." It's such an important reminder that every time you make a mistake, you are not failing. You are progressing. You are moving closer to your goal, and you are learning more about yourself and the world around you. So, the next time you fail at something, don't give up. Don't let the fear of failure stop you. Instead, embrace it, learn from it, and use it to move forward. Keep trying, keep growing, and keep learning. You are capable of achieving anything you set your mind to.
That's such a powerful message, Julia. Thank you all for joining us today, and I hope you feel encouraged to use failure as a tool for growth in your own life. Remember, failure doesn't define you. It's just part of your journey to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who might find it helpful. Let's spread the message that failure is just a stepping stone to success. We'll see you next time with more helpful tips and encouragement for your learning journey. Stay motivated, keep growing, and always remember, every mistake is a step forward.
And with that, we've reached the end of today's episode. I want to take a moment to thank all of you for listening and for being a part of today's discussion. It's been such a wonderful experience to explore the powerful topic of failure with you all. I hope that you've learned something new and that you feel more confident about facing any failures that may come your way in the future. Remember, failure is not something to be afraid of. It's an opportunity to grow, and it's an essential part of your journey towards success.
Absolutely, Julia. We truly appreciate you taking the time to listen to us today. We understand that learning a language, just like learning life's valuable lessons, takes time, effort, and sometimes a little bit of failure along the way. But what's important is that you're here, you're listening, and you're improving. And that's what matters the most. Whether you're a beginner or at a more advanced level, every step you take in your learning journey brings you closer to your goals, so keep at it. We are so proud of the effort you're putting in, and we want to continue supporting you on this path.
That's right, Adam. And if you enjoyed today's podcast and found it helpful, we'd love for you to show us some support. Please remember to like this video, comment below with your thoughts or any questions you have, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on future episodes. Your support really helps us grow, and we want to keep bringing you more content that can help you learn English and improve your life. So, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now. It only takes a second, but it makes a huge difference for us.
Yes, please do. We are excited to hear your thoughts in the comments, and if there's anything specific you'd like us to discuss, or any questions you'd like answered in future episodes, feel free to let us know. We're here to help you on your learning journey, and your feedback is super important to us.
Before we end, I also want to give you a sneak peek into our next episode. In the upcoming episode, we're going to dive into a really interesting topic that I think you're going to love: how to stay motivated when learning English. We'll talk about practical tips, strategies to keep you inspired, and how to make the most of your learning experience. If you've ever felt a little stuck or unmotivated, you definitely won't want to miss it. So, be sure to tune in next time for more great insights.
That's right. We can't wait to share that episode with you. Remember, no matter where you are on your learning journey, we're in this together, and we'll always be here to help and motivate you. Once again, thank you so much for listening today. We really appreciate your support, and we hope that you'll join us again in our next episode. Until then, take care, keep learning, and remember that every mistake is just a stepping stone to success.
Thanks again, everyone. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. Take care and keep growing with English. See you soon.